vehicle screen. Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm here today with our resident engineer, Mike Herzog. How's it going today, Mike?
Glad to be here as always, David.
Oh, it's always good to have you. Let's see here. All right. Anyways, so I've got quite an eclectic mix of topics today. So we talk a lot about battery storage, right? And there's some things going on. I'm not sure about everything that's getting canceled in the big beautiful bill or all that. We've got a few topics to discuss as far as some things are going on in the energy space and with cars and all of that. I know Bill was having a lot of fun with the new Trump Musk, conflict, and I don't know. It gets kind of wild. Trump doesn't like being criticized, and that's
It's If he catches it and picks it up, that doesn't matter who you are. I mean,
yeah,
I think if you and I said something and he found it, he would respond to us. It's just one of those. He just doesn't take crap for
yeah.
everything else associated. I mean, that's one of his characteristics.
Well, one of the things that I think Musk does a good job of pointing out. I don't like all the pork in different bills, right? But everybody's like, I'll vote for your bill if you put in, so that I can,
Yeah.
dredge a lake have more ducks here in Nebraska for $1 billion. I don't know. I mean, it's just silly sometimes how much of that there is in different things, and we're gonna discuss a couple of the topics then, that's going on in there. But anyways, my first topic today is a company called Redwood Materials. They have built a record amount of grid storage using old EV batteries. Now, we talk about this all the time because people are like,
Mhm.
oh, the batteries have to be recycled. And so far, the recycling companies aren't doing very well because there's nothing to recycle.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, one, they live, their primary life is great. They're doing better. And then secondly, yeah, their reuse.
Mhm.
One of the other R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. Like they're being reused. It's awesome.
Yeah, Owen, I don't know about whaleboat captains, but those guys who go and get the crabs, I've watched a few episodes of that, that TV show, and it looks pretty scary. I think they should get some kind of tax break for being out there and making sure we have plenty of crab for our buffets. When I go to the casino, and I sometimes wonder how many families of crabs I've slaughtered every time I've
Just
just sitting there eating at the buffet. Yes,
as far
but
away from an ocean as possible.
all
Yeah,
right.
mowing down crab. Yeah.
um, but this is kind of funny because you think about battery storage. What I'm going to show you probably isn't what you expect. Um, this is really kind of funny. Apparently, all these things sitting out here in this field are like EV batteries covered up in plastic.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
I was just say that looks like when it's first frost around here. Okay, go cover your hose and your. That's what came to mind. Like, are they keeping them out of the sun? Is it too
right.
bright?
Yeah, I don't know. This is just outside of Reno, Nevada. So,
Cool.
anyways, let's see. It's supposed to be the largest energy storage installation ever assembled from used EV batteries. It's a side project of a former Tesla chief technology officer, J.B. Strubble's recycling juggernaut, which is called Redwood Materials. Um, let's see. It's a dusty field strewn with oddly shaped boxes wrapped in some kind of plastic sheeting. The boxes were propped up on cinder blocks in the manner of rusted cars in a forgotten yard. It looks a bit like a garbage dump. Yeah, I don't know if this is a hit piece or not. Okay, I
I don't
didn't
know.
read
I
the
mean,
article before it.
if it's dusty, I guess cover them up, keep the dust out of there. But
Yeah,
it's just
underneath the plastic bags, there were 792 individual EV battery packs wired up in long rows and spread across 2 acres on the firm's campus outside Reno. The plastic wrapping is meant to protect them from dust. So apparently,
Mhm.
I mean, it does rain there. My folks used to live in Sparks, Nevada, which is next door to Reno, and Tesla makes batteries in Sparks.
Okay.
So there's a big Tesla battery plant there. But let's see. Nearby was a field of solar panels laid flat on the ground, making it hard to gauge how far back they went. The panels convert sunlight to electricity, oh duh, and stored in an array of old car batteries to power a miniature data center that a startup named Crusoe built in the same field as the batteries.
Man, they're just checking all the boxes.
Yeah,
Like that's everything right there.
yeah. I hope the, Crusoe spelled Crusoe. I'm
Mhm.
hoping it was founded by a blind Indian, but so they got all their different, really checked off some boxes,
It's
right?
really they've
Yeah,
got all the grants and funding and yeah.
yeah. So any surplus power flows to Redwood's own facilities surrounding the installation. They hailed it as a breakthrough in the sleepy field of secondhand batteries. Obvious pun there. It's been around for a while, but failed to move beyond initial proofs of concept to repeated large-scale deployments. But eventually you have to suspect that there's going to be a lot of this, right?
Yeah.
Because as there's, starts to be thousands or millions of EVs, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for this. It's just there hasn't been much so far, and maybe there won't be a whole lot for another 10 years, at least of used batteries,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But
So
it really looks like they just jerry rigged that thing together. I
it
mean,
does, it
and that's where
does.
you say is that a hit piece, but comments like, well, the solar panels were laying flat, which is, I mean, that is a dig because you tilt them and you move them so you get better. But it sounds like, should we just go out and try it and see if it works? And it sounds like that's what they did. They
That's
just
kind
went
of
out and
sounds
tried
like
it.
it, because you'd expect it to be in a building or shipping containers or some kind of other cover other than plastic bags.
Yeah. And that's why I mean,
Uh,
as a proof of concept, go for it. I like it when people do things.
if they had been a trust fund billionaire, baby. That one of the sad pieces, Owen, is in the EV space. Now, Musk wasn't a billionaire before he started Tesla, but he was really well off. Okay. But the when I've looked at some of these EV projects or other businesses, it really helps if you're pretty well off before you start. And I've seen some situations where people put 20 million of their own money into a project and they still couldn't get any traction, and they had a great idea. We had somebody on who was making EV chargers, and he still is. He's big in that space, and he had put, I think, 10 or 20 million of his own money into it, and he kind of wanted to raise some more, but he said, if I have to put another 10 million of my own money in, I will. And I think but he was really close to break even at the time already.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and but it was a situation where he's selling like just on Amazon like 5,000 EV chargers a month, and that was damn near 2 years ago. Okay, so I'd imagine he's probably doubled that since then. You know, it's just hard to fathom. That's a lot of EV chargers every month, right? So if he's doing that many, that would probably represent more than 10% of all the level 2 chargers probably sold in the United States.
Probably. I mean, I
Yeah,
really, when you say that per month, and a couple of years ago, that would have been a huge market share out
yeah,
there.
yeah. He said he was number 2 on Amazon at the time.
Oh, nice. It's if you go Google level two chargers on
Hmm.
Amazon, there's more than you think um, out there than people that are putting it out, and they're all generally pretty good products. I mean, they
Hmm.
seem to have good reliability and good customer reviews, and they're not that expensive when they get out there.
What kind of surprised me was when you think of the company ChargePoint, you think
Mhm.
of them with having their superchargers, right?
Yeah.
But they're actually at the time 2 years ago they were the largest seller on Amazon
So level
of
two chargers.
level 2. They were bigger than the guy we had on that was putting his own money into the business. ChargePoint's publicly traded.
Yeah, ChargePoint's big. They're the when it's you get that, then you get the network aspects and everything like that. So yeah, they've done pretty well for themselves in level two. I think they might be number two in level three chargers, like a distant number two, behind Tesla and their supercharging stations. But I know they've been doing some in that space too.
And it's just a different kind of space looking at some of that, but it is tough. And these guys doing this with the batteries, well, it's kind of a proof of concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
More than anything. Although we've heard people talk about it because there's already companies making new batteries and doing stuff like this. It's just that this is used batteries. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, once again, for them to have 700 used EV car batteries, I'm sure that was a challenge to accumulate all of those.
Yeah, yeah, because I've been picking them up for years, probably. I mean, that's just not it's not
Yeah.
as plentiful as you would think at this point. For all we've been hearing for the past 5 to 10 years about what the hell are we going to do with all these old batteries and how's that going to work? It's like, well, this
Yeah.
hasn't
So
been a problem yet.
yeah, so an outfit like this can only get 700 of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of showing you something. Another startup called Element Energy obtained a bounty of lightly used packs, quite possibly through their investor LG, which endured $1 billion recall for units it supplied to GM a few years ago. Element installed a couple dozen containers in West Texas, so they use shipping containers filled with 53 megawatt hours of second life storage. Yet it plans to build a factory to mass produce enclosures for second life. So 53, let's just say it was, say 12 per megawatt. So that would have been still about 600
Mm-hmm.
EV batteries. Hold on one.
Ooh, maybe he's going to come back. Yeah, I mean those are. I kind of want to go Google that and just see what kind of market is out there today, and just use EV batteries and what can you get and get forward because it's I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see why we strung them all together with cables and then interconnected them. Put some
Well,
solar on there for good measure.
yeah, I think it's probably not as complicated. I suspect there's some sophisticated software and management systems
Yeah,
that's
where
managing all the
balance.
batteries, right? But I'm just saying, it's not just like I got a solar panel, I got a battery, I'm hooking it up, and I'm running the power to something else. I mean, it could be, right?
It
I
could.
mean,
I mean, there is something to it. Like, let's see how cheap we can do this and
at your most
how it works.
basic setup, you could have one of these that you took somewhere to a campsite and you had a couple of solar panels and you had to go in there and
Yeah,
you had some things hooked up to the battery to run them, right? And
100%.
hopefully nothing weird happened with the voltage coming off of that big ass battery.
It should be. I mean, they're pretty good. They're pretty good
Yeah.
at what they're doing, and for those applications. And you think about that if your alternative is diesel, um, like that's a really good quick economic case.
Oh, this is funny, and this is once again where I'm not sure if this was a hit piece or not. All of these developers have had to grapple with the same initial challenges. They need to get their hands on old EV packs and then sort out the ones that aren't going to catch fire. Now, that might have been why they had them separated like
Separated
that.
like that, yeah.
Yeah,
Physical separation, yeah.
yeah. Hey, Owen, does it? What's the kilowatt hours on that battery pack? I'm kind of curious. How big is it for 5 grand? Um, but I guess it's just what can you find? And somebody like that, they probably had their car get totaled. And they probably went and bought it from the auction. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
whatever the insurance company was going to pay for it. And that's probably why they're doing that, because the insurance was probably selling the car for like $2,500 or something like that.
But there's
And
a
they
ton of
felt they could
value in
try to
that.
see if they
Yeah.
could get that for it. EV6, that sounds like a Hyundai, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No.
Or Kia EV6.
Yeah, Kia EV6. I mean, that's probably about a 60 kilowatt hour battery, I'd assume.
Something like that.
Maybe a
77.
77 for 5 grand. That's probably pretty worthwhile. I mean, that's a fair amount of
Yeah.
battery storage there. You could power your house for at least 2 days off of that.
Yeah, and full power. I mean, you could run
Yeah.
AC. You could do just about anything you'd want. But yeah, you figure at 77 kWh, it's you need what 12 of them, something like that, to get close, 12, 13 of them to get about a megawatt hour.
Yeah.
That's not that. I mean, that's price competitive
Hmm.
with utility scale and whatever else is out there too. That's not bad at all.
Well, think about that. If you got 12 of them used for 5 grand each, that'd be
Mhm.
$60,000 to hold a megawatt.
Yeah.
That's that's pretty damn cheap because we know that megawatt of solar is probably about $800,000
Mhm.
to put that out there, and that's 5 acres of land. That's
Yeah.
five. That's not counting the cost of the 5 acres of land. Okay, that's pretty cheap battery storage. I'm curious what if new batteries are in that same price range. That's a lot cheaper than the energy from the actual solar panels.
Well, one of the differences though, that's when we're talking megawatt hours, that's not the instantaneous power. So you need, I think they're depending on level two charging, let's say it's 10 kilowatts, you'd still need about 100 of them to actually produce the megawatt. It's just you have a megawatt hour of energy storage. So like the analog is like a
Got it.
hose and a water tank. Like, yeah, you got
Hmm.
the big old water tank, but your hose is only small. It's much smaller with 12 of them.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
But still, it's very that's cheap. 60,000 bucks for a megawatt hour is very
Of
cheap.
storage. Yeah. See, I'm thinking more along the lines of the storage capacity, and you're thinking of the throughput.
I know
And
that's funny. Yeah,
yeah,
you're thinking the hey, how would this benefit a home or resiliency, grid support, and that's where you
no,
need
no, I
the
understand that.
megawatts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I guess that's probably your bigger consideration is
yeah,
throughput.
that's
And
just
I and I'm just thinking of if I have a solar farm, I've got to create enough solar and store it so that I can power the community at night,
yep.
right? And because I'm constantly looking at these different, you know, solutions, different things when we're talking about solar farms, SMR nuclear,
Mhm.
things like that. It was interesting because Jigger Shaw a couple of weeks ago posted something on LinkedIn, and he was one of our former guests. He was the Department of Energy Loan Program Office head, if y'all don't know, and he had put something about all the great things going on in Canada with SMR nuclear technology, and people were like jumping down his throat because here's a guy who I'd say he's extremely middle of the road politically. Okay, that
Mhm.
was my opinion from when we interviewed him. I mean, he has he'd raised previously $500 million for Sun Edison to have solar power up
Mhm.
in the Northeast, and anyways, so he's been in that space, and so Biden made him. He was an appointed position, head of the loan program office, and he was very qualified to run it. He had
Mhm.
great credentials. He's got a huge following on LinkedIn. He's got a newsletter that has like 170,000 subscribers. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a big newsletter. I mean, he's an influential person, and he was just getting hacked by all these people, just calling him out for promoting nuclear when he should be promoting battery storage and all that. And it's like, we're constantly saying, everything's a tool, right? And I have a hard time, no matter how much I want to see nuclear come in and solar and all these other things, it's going to be hard replacing LNG.
Yeah.
Okay. And because it works, right? I mean, and it's not really a whole lot more expensive than some other things. And as demand for fossil fuels drops, well, it's going to cause there to be a glut of things like LNG, right? And so
Mhm.
the prices are going to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to become so the more pressure you put on the less use of it, the cheaper it's going to get.
Mhm.
So which is
And
which is good.
this is going to get way into the weeds of batteries and how they're considered, but batteries don't make power. And
Right.
when we talk about them for grid support and how they fit in everything, like it's semantics, but it's the reality of it. It's like they're an energy resource. They're not a generator.
Yes.
And it gets very interesting when you look at it. Yes, you can use them to support the grid, but you still need generation. So it's always
Hmm.
batteries coupled with wind, batteries
Right.
coupled with solar. Standalone batteries, the grid needs that support service right now because it's
Hmm.
trying to balance renewables and shore up gaps that have been created by retired coal plants. But eventually, it's like we need generation. It's not just storage or resource. You have to actually generate the power.
So I have a couple things. So one, if I'm looking at a remote mining location, I'm going to
Mhm.
locate an SMR nuclear reactor at, okay? They're not going to use exactly the same amount of power 24 hours a day either, right?
Mhm.
So battery storage, now with the nuclear, you can power it down and power it back up, but why would you want to,
Yeah,
right?
it's you
So
have that asset, you want to run it if you
you
can.
want to run it, right? It doesn't make sense not to be using your power. So you're still going to want to have battery backup so that you can put that in there and then you can draw that down when you need more, right?
Yeah,
Well, um, but when I look at some of the other aspects, so a lot of what we're doing is trying to promote an end to energy poverty. So I was looking at this one island nation that could just use their average daily usage is about they're running at about 14 megawatt hours um, throughout the day.
for the
Okay,
entire island.
for the entire island. Okay, it's a U.S. territory or a former U.S. territory. Okay, and but 97% of that comes from diesel. Okay, so they're burning diesel for electricity. It's dirty, polluting, whatever. So we come in there and let's say we provide them 14 megawatt hours, 24 hours a day. Well, what happens is their economy expands.
They fill the gaps. You fill
So
the
what
space.
happens is
Yeah,
maybe you have that 14, but you were getting 14 from diesel. You're probably still going to get 7 from diesel, right?
because you're gonna.
Because
Yep.
you're going to open more businesses, there's going to be more industry, there's going to be more demand. The income of people there is going to go up, so there's going to be more demand for goods and services. So what's going to happen is then all of a sudden you're going to drop in a second reactor,
Yep.
okay, and then it's going to grow some more, and you're going to still though be
Well, it's
um
diesel's quick and it's fast and it's easy to put in. And if you need a stopgap where it's
yeah,
holy cow, we don't want to say no, we want to grow our island, we want to grow our business, like fire the diesel back up. Is
right,
it
exactly,
permanent? Nope. This is just for until we get the next resource online. We're gonna
yeah,
run it and then
yeah.
keep
So
doing that.
what's going to happen is you're going to have that 14 megawatts. It's going to go back to 28 megawatts. You're going to go back to burning 14
Yep.
more megawatts of diesel, and then you're going to come back. So I'm just saying, while you're getting rid of that initial amount of pollution, the energy needs are going to increase, and what's going to happen is the people on that island are going to benefit because their standard of living is going to go up tremendously.
That's
Okay, but
that's
they're going to
exactly
become bigger consumers of goods and services. And this is one of the arguments about the United States: is the United States is 5% of the world's population, and we're 25% of the resource use of the planet, and that India and China are making our stuff, and so they're the big polluting. Yeah, every time you expand a road, traffic goes up, and what happens is you build more along that road, right? That road gets bigger. You open a new shopping center. You open that shopping center, all of a sudden somebody drops a subdivision right beside it, or in reverse. The subdivision gets dropped off, then the built, and then the subdivision, or then the shopping center.
yeah.
But you keep expanding those areas, and you keep improving the economics of those areas. And energy drives economics everywhere. It's just that we're in the United States, we take energy for granted,
Yeah.
whereas the rest of
Oh,
the world
100%.
doesn't have the access
Boy,
that
and,
we
and
have to
that,
energy.
that's the one where on those island nations and places, you can just think of like some of the basics and how fast solar, like lighting,
Hmm.
any type of climate control, refrigeration, are just these huge things that we take for granted that we're not talking everybody's going to get a flat screen TV and surround sound. No, it's a refrigerator, a
Yeah.
ceiling fan they can run all the time. Those
Hmm.
those things like that that'll just add up because that power is going to be available.
Yeah, it's just hard to fathom. But the thing is, too, they have access to power now, But when it costs 35
It's
cents or 40
expensive.
cents a kilowatt hour and they don't have full access to it, it's hard to make the economics of industry work in some cases.
Yeah,
Now, if you live in California, you pay that anyways, but
you do, but it's
first,
sometimes it's tough for people to think about that because the GDP per capita of these nations is so much smaller than the United States, and then their cost per unit of energy is 2 to 3
astronomical
times
compared.
our national average. So just a double whammy for them. So its relative cost is like staggeringly high for people there.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm just saying it changes the dynamics and economics of
Mhm.
everything in that. All right, let's talk about well, water is a similar topic, and this is one
It's
of the unique things.
desalination. Yeah.
Yeah, so your regular nuclear power plants, they run at what, like 300 to 400 degrees, I think is what, yeah, they're converting water into steam essentially.
Mhm.
But these fourth gen reactors run typically at 900 plus degrees, all the way up to 1600 degrees. And so they have this heat. So they have this thermal energy they're producing besides the electrical energy. And that thermal energy is perfect for desalination or creating potable water. And so it solves other uses, other issues in these places as well, where it's not just a matter of like digging another well to pull up some dirty water, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, no, I mean that is island nations. That's the same challenge they have. I mean,
Right.
it's water. Like we don't have. Well, like Owen said, it's basically energy. I mean, it's a resource. It's a
We're
resource.
surrounded by water we can't use.
Yeah, water
There's
everywhere, not a drop to drink.
Yeah, there's this huge desalination plant in I think it's in Orange County, California, that they don't use because it produced too much brine, and the brine was dangerous to put back into the ocean because it would kill all
Because it
the
increases
wildlife right there.
humidity and everything locally.
And I'm just
So it's
like,
just sitting on big piles of salt when everything's
I mean,
done.
couldn't you? Yeah, or I guess wherever it was shooting back out, it would kill all of the wildlife. And it's like, well, wouldn't there be isn't there some way you could have, broken that down, or
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
like
know,
spread it
or
out, thinned it
or
out a little bit, or I don't
or
know.
just extracted all the salt,
Yeah,
just extracted all the salt and sold that off or something. I don't know. It just seemed like an odd issue. There's probably not a whole lot of use for just, briny salt
brine
water, right?
water.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. There's a reason why they're not selling the salt, okay? But
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I guess they're just
Only so much boutique sea salt. People need.
right. Well, and maybe it's just too expensive to produce that salt, but to me, it's a byproduct they have to get rid of to run the
Well,
organization.
it's a sunk cost or whatever you want. It
Yeah,
happens. Like it's not like you're going out in the business of finding salt. It's just we have this pile of salt when we're done with it. What can we do
yeah,
with it?
yeah. It's just like all the people with the in the aluminum industry that had this byproduct of making aluminum called fluoride, and they somehow convinced dentists that fluoride was the solution for teeth. Now all these places are stopping putting fluoride in the water. Anyways, let's move on to a different topic. We've been on that one a little long. So, um, and this one actually comes from the guy at EV Auto out in Salt Lake City, Alex Lawrence. He's a professor. He's been
Mhm.
on our show a long time ago, and I've always enjoyed. I follow him on LinkedIn, and he posts a lot, and he's really good because you get a good idea of what's kind of going on in the used EV market.
Mhm.
But he sent a letter today on behalf to senators on behalf of CarMax, Carvana, EV Auto, and a lot of others in support of a gradual sunset of the EV tax credits. But the problem is, like, the big beautiful bill is basically trying to eliminate it all at once. Okay, and I think it
It's
might be
end of the
September.
year, right? And that's what's in
Well,
there.
I was thinking it was end of the year, but I saw somebody mention maybe it's September, but maybe it's end of the year. So I'm
It's
not
stupid. I mean,
unclear.
it's not. It's yeah. It's once it passes, its days are numbered pretty quick.
Yeah, and they're asking for a sunsetting of the process because here's the crazy thing is the way it's currently working, that $4,000 tax credit is letting a lot of low income people use that as their down payment
Because it's
on
point of sale, right? I
it's
mean,
at point of sale. It's not like it used to be where you got it on
you
your
got your break on
taxes.
your taxes at the end of the year.
And if you didn't earn enough money to have paid in that much in taxes, you only got that big of a refund. But now it's simply a $4,000 discount on the used car that has to be under $25,000. And I know that EV Auto, he sells over 100 used Teslas a month.
Dang.
And yeah, I mean, he moves a fair number for I think he's got two, and now he's got two locations and he's opening some more. Um, but it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. But he wrote a big, like, multi-page letter to all of these senators, and he had it. It was on behalf of about 2 dozen car dealers, but obviously the big ones everybody's heard of are like CarMax and Carvana, but there
I
was
mean,
just a
that's
whole lot of
good
them.
for him if he got those to sign on. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and then add that to the annual $250 EV tax, $100 hybrid tax that they're trying to add on, because those are excessively punitive to EV drivers. Um, it actually, so somebody with a light duty vehicle would only pay $82 in federal taxes. So it's about triple what the average car owner pays when they buy gas for the
Yeah.
state taxes. Um,
Well, one of our local senators was a big proponent of that a couple months ago. We wanted to put that out locally and really moving forward. So it's kind of disappointing.
oh yeah,
Especially
when she was saying that she was trying to say that EVs may weigh 3 times as
well,
much
no,
as
and
a
it
gas.
was so we're in Nebraska, which is there's a lot of rural areas where there's not a lot of EV penetration right now, but she really wanted to put in. She said it's overburdening the rural roads in our state. I don't know if that's the case, but
I remember what it was earlier this year when we passed up 5,000 EVs in the greater Omaha area,
yeah,
right?
it's not we're not breaking the bank out here. We're doing okay. It's you see them more and more and more popping
Oh
up
yeah.
locally, but
No,
the rest of the
it's
state there's
funny.
not a lot of them.
I know when I was out in California a week or so ago, I sent Bill this text that said the Teslas are coming in herds here. Here it's like, oh, you occasionally see one, right?
I've
And
been I will say I've been surrounded at a stoplight before where you look around and there's two or three of them just kind of sitting
yeah,
around.
here,
It's like,
yeah,
it's
but
different.
but it was funny in California. It'd be like, oh, there goes 4 Teslas, there goes 5 Teslas, there goes 6 Teslas. They were like traveling in herds.
Safer
It
that
was,
way.
yeah,
Safer out
they
there.
travel in
Got to
herds for
travel in packs
safety.
in California.
Yeah, so that nobody tries to attack their cars, I guess. But it was just it was just kind of funny to see because it's like, wow, that's a lot more density. I mean, I would assume the ownership density is probably 10x what it is here
Wow.
in Nebraska. You know, well, what are they? They're at 25% EVs being sold in California as new cars, and here we're probably still, in that 2% range kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I would. Oof, that might be generous. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
It's just not. It's not close. It's
yeah.
not
It's
comparable.
just so night and day different going
Mhm.
to the West Coast and seeing that. But um, what they'd like to see is a gradual decrease because um, it's really benefiting low income people, and at least the used one is, right?
Mhm.
And it's just kind of sad to see that they're going to just get rid of it. But it looks like that's probably the end
I think
but who
well,
knows?
it's
We'll
done.
see.
I mean, as we speak, that bill may be going to vote and getting its final passing, but um, yeah, I think it's gone. I think it's too late.
And Musk has been criticizing Trump for slashing EV credits and significant cuts to EV credits, significant cuts to wind and solar. The Senate version of the Big Beautiful Bill would raise the cost of wind and solar projects by 10 to 20%. Now, I like the idea of there being some incentives for obviously, most of us aren't having a wind project in our yard, right, that qualifies. But there's been all these incentives for people to have their own solar with this 28, I think it's like 28%
Mhm.
tax credit or whatever. But I feel like the solar companies have just jacked up the prices so much because they generally charge 5x what it costs them to install it. And
Yeah,
it just doesn't seem right.
there's
When,
a lot there's a lot of players in that space who are very very questionable. I mean,
yeah.
in our state, there's two specific companies that have been taken to court, and one of them is not allowed to do business in the state anymore because of unfair
Oh,
business
wow.
practices. Yeah, and they're
Yeah.
really
But
like horror stories of pressure tactics on little old ladies of you need to put solar up and things. So it's been not doing themselves any favors.
Well, when you look at if your house, if they're quoting you 50,000, their real cost, not counting the commission for the salesperson,
Mhm.
is probably about $10,000 for the equipment and the labor to install it. Okay. But then once you get beyond that, I mean, hell, if they did it for $20,000, I think you'd see masses of people buying the things.
Mhm.
But there's one of the things, if they sell it for 50, your tax credit is $14,000.
Yeah.
And that's a big chunk of savings, and it looks good to people. But that's more than that should have been pretty much the whole
Even for a
thing.
smaller project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the thing is, if they charged you $20,000 for the project, your 28% would have only been 5,600, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I'm just saying,
I
it's
agree. I
kind of
agree with you. I agree with you on some of those. They're not. They haven't helped themselves. Now, these tax credits do have a sunset. At least the
mhm.
utility scale, 2027. It sounds like when they're going to go through. So it's gradual, and they've been on that path for years and years. They just kept getting extended, but now it's like okay, here's the line. And unfortunately, and I can spy ahead on some of the comments, but it's yeah, the energy efficiency projects and home renovations and ceiling windows and that kind of thing. Some of those are going away too, which were I think those were pretty good projects or pretty good programs out there that did a lot of good. Um,
Yeah, I think most people would like the idea of having a more what they call a high performance home.
yeah.
That you know has lower energy costs because it has energy efficient windows, HVAC, different things. I've met with some real estate developers in Florida who were specifically anything that could possibly get a rebate from the government. For anything, and it included the car charger,
Mhm.
the solar panels, everything. They were putting in their new construction.
Yeah, that's
And,
good.
and they were trying to show it being as absolutely green as possible in Florida, even though Florida didn't have any like state rebates, because some states also have rebates through the power companies and different
Yep.
things for various um, projects. Bill has some funny names for Trump. My next article calls him DC Donnie. He never will address him as President Trump or anything, and I just kind of laugh. It's pretty funny. But there's U.S. trails behind Asia in electrification and renewable energy adoption, and part of it is we're so ingrained in the fossil fuel industry. It's difficult. We had a prospective investor who wanted to put money into nuclear, get chased off, and he's in the oil and gas space, and he got threats from people in the oil and gas space.
Wow.
Yeah, not to him personally,
I
but
know, but it's just
to
one of
not
those.
do
Hey,
business with him
we do,
anymore.
we don't do business, yeah, kind of thing. Like that's not something we want to promote. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and so when you're powering a drilling rig, they may use up the 20 megawatts continuously. I mean, it's a crazy amount. And what they do is they burn diesel to generate the power
to
to run the
extract
rig.
diesel. Yeah.
Yeah, and but really, a tax break for coal used to make steel. Well, go figure. That
I don't,
probably
I haven't read through the final
we'll call that the West Virginia clause.
yeah.
So West Virginia
Go with the
probably needs that.
Alaska bucket.
And what was it Biden told all the people in West Virginia? Learn to code.
Mhm.
I mean that's not. I mean that is really. I mean I'm sure that really upset a lot of people when he
Yeah.
said that. But you know, and now all of a sudden AI is doing the coding, and you know,
Yeah, yeah.
well that didn't
That
pan out
job
well.
disappeared too. Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah, yeah, but so, a recent Bloomberg article highlighted the U.S. struggle to keep pace with developing nations in the race to embrace electrification and renewable energy sources. We're lagging in adopting solar and wind power, and proposed duties on new solar and wind farms could exacerbate the situation. Now, you're in that space, and I mean, are you seeing anything with the bureaucratic red tape of being able to bring what's already been built online?
It's just it's slow. It's still very, very slow. And the people that have jurisdiction and authority on that, some of them are still approving projects from like 2020. It's just been very lagging. So there's specific instructions from the federal government of we need to fix this. And this goes back years of FERC and people having oversight saying this is not okay. We need to fix these processes. So industry has caught up. A couple of the big markets have kind of thrown their hands up and said, "We don't know what to do. It's broken." But they are under instructions of like you have to have a plan on how you're going to make these things work better and bring things online faster. So some of that's starting to come out now, which is a good
Yeah,
thing.
it's just sad that now we're not just going to cut the subsidies, we're going to tariff the items as well.
Mhm.
All right, I
The
got kind of
no, I'll Asia is a big place. Asia has a lot of people.
mhm,
And maybe when you think about China and what they're
mhm.
doing in this space and all the renewables they're bringing online, good. But the rest of it, I've actually been doing a lot of research on Southeast Asia, which is going to be, I think, the number 3 or 4 population center by 2050, way up there. So India, China, Southeast Asia, so like your Vietnams, Koreas, Laos, Burma, places like your Myanmar, all of that region, they're building coal like mad. So in all of that, yeah, they've increased renewable adoption, but God, it's like 75% of all the new generation going in is coal. Like Indonesia specifically, one of the fastest growing countries in the world, all they're doing is building coal. So that, oh, look at what Asia's doing. It's so wonderful. Like, maybe, but the areas that are really, really growing fast are, yeah, they're electrifying and they're powering it all by coal.
Well, that goes back to, the thing I've said many times, like, oh, I should just go to my high horse and tell them, don't you dare do that. You could just stay poor
Yeah,
if you don't have
we're living in this
electricity.
beautiful, like climate controlled office space
Right.
right now and don't care where it came from, but the rest of you don't know. You don't get that.
No, no, don't make the same mistakes we made.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as I crank down my thermostat on this 92-degree day, I can know that you guys it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of nuts. I mean, I was telling somebody, it's like, hey, India plans on increasing their coal energy by 50% between now and 2030.
Wow.
They've set a government target of how much coal energy they want to increase, but at the same time, they're trying to increase all sources of energy. So it's not just coal. Coal's just the easy one.
Yep.
It's the easier one to bring to market, but I see them doing stuff with wave energy, like
Yeah, yeah.
harnessing a buoy,
Yep, yep,
bouncing
yep.
up and down in the waves, and Obviously they're doing some nuclear. They have the world's largest solar farm. They're doing stuff with wind and other things, but they need energy, and they've got a lot of people, and they're a rapidly developing economy, and they're the world's largest population, and people deserve to have electricity. And like I said, I don't think it's right for us to tell them how they get it.
Well, and it's
You
still
know.
it's the like per capita numbers aren't even close. Our
Mhm.
energy consumption, it's just, there's a billion people in some of those
Yeah.
countries, so that it adds up. The raw numbers are quick, but the per capita, holy smokes, not even in the same ballpark.
Well, hopefully they don't discover like air conditioning, because that's the real use in the United States, isn't it?
That's what our grid's based off of. Um, Now, I mean, the next boom right now is data and AI. I mean, it's been 50 years. Last time the grid really boomed was 60s and 70s, and it was all AC. And now it's data and computers and processing, and we're seeing it again 50 years later.
So I got a good one for you. So you know how people were attacking Teslas and stuff like that in the US? Well, Russians turn against Chinese cars amid export collapse. Tensions between Russia and China have spilled onto the streets as videos emerge of Russians angrily vandalizing Chinese made cars. The dramatic scenes follow a staggering 50% drop in Chinese car exports to Russia in the first 4 months of 2025, highlighting growing public backlash and geopolitical strain. So that's what Russia decided to.
I had no idea that was happening in that part of
Yeah,
the world. There's trade disputes between Russia and China. This
yeah.
did not enter my sphere.
They've had a year-over-year decline of 70%. It accelerated in April, 70% decline from the year before. Social media clips and reports have surfaced showing Russians publicly destroying Chinese vehicles, smashing windows, torching cars. While partly symbolic, the destruction underscores a deeper sense of betrayal and dissatisfaction with the quality, performance, or political implications of owning Chinese imports. I'm like, you know, it's funny to see the stuff from California where you see somebody
Yeah, yeah.
like protesting, immigration and customs enforcement
Let's go
by
Kia
burning
Tesla.
cars or standing on there and waving a Mexican flag. Okay, and it's like that makes no sense at all.
Does not
So
make
I don't
sense.
know what they're doing over there. Well, if they're flying a Russian flag while they're
Well, that's
destroying.
I don't know. I don't know anything about it, but I find it very fascinating that it's. I mean, is
Yeah,
the protest? They're just all lemons. I mean, that's some of it's. Boy, we just got sold a bill of goods on these, and they're actually terrible, or is it? I can't really think of a Russian automotive industry,
yeah. It
but
says while partly symbolic, the destruction underscores a deeper sense of betrayal and dissatisfaction with the quality, performance, or political implications of owning Chinese imports. Uh, the obviously there's a difference in thinking about Chinese cars in
mm,
Russia than there probably is here. But I have another article on this topic, not about Russia, but about Chinese cars. Um, so this one, this article came to me. It's called China's Sputnik Moment. Of
okay,
course, Sputnik is a reference to Russia's first satellite, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, um,
Which was the first satellite. I mean,
yeah,
that was the space race. They beat
yeah,
us. Yep.
yeah. So, um, we've talked about the idea that there's these EV tariffs on Chinese cars that are 100%, right?
Yep.
So we're not importing them. But what if car dealers began importing lightly used Chinese cars from Mexico and delivering them to American buyers? In China, they're already selling zero mileage secondhand cars as used to get around regulations intended to end price wars.
I- At
Zero
least put,
mileage
at least
used
put like
car.
drive around the parking lot a little bit
Right.
just to gently use it. It can't be zero. Just
Yeah.
a paper transaction. That doesn't seem right.
Okay. So new electric cars from China get a 147.5% duty.
Okay.
So it's almost 1.5 times extra, according to data from the Department of Commerce. But used car imports from Mexico are only subject to a 25% tariff.
Regardless of country of origin, probably. I mean, it's
Yes.
okay.
Okay. Now, China exports more cars to Mexico than any other market in the world. Mexican consumers are already driving hundreds of thousands of BYDs, Cheries, which is Cherry's brand name in Mexico, Zeekrs, Aeons, and SAIC MGs. Let's see. Um, the Somebody that wrote this article, they went to a BYD dealership in Tijuana and they test drove a few vehicles, a $45,000 Shark pickup truck. These are US dollars. The $20,000 Mini Dolphin, and BYD plans to sell about 80,000 cars in Mexico, which they sold zero in 2020, and now they're at 80,000 cars. Um, let's see. Not a lot of Mexican customers are familiar with the BYD brand, but they get excited when they see the quality they can get at the prices. BYD's infotainment is the best in the industry, way ahead of GM, Ford, and Toyota. Let's see. Veteran executives from the Mexican industry said that BYD and other Chinese cars are hurting the legacy automakers. Stellantis and GM are losing market share at a rapid clip. Profits are falling fast too. Well, that's one of the things we've said. It's like, you can protect the big three here in the United States, but it's crazy to look at how well these vehicles, you know, from GM and Ford and Stellantis are going to do in other countries where they have to compete with BYD.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't make sense. Let's see. Winners are gas for electric. Let's
The
see what we
Dolphin's
get.
definitely electric.
Yeah,
I think the Shark is too.
the Shark is electric. It's an electric pickup truck. Um, it's hard to imagine these Chinese cars not finding their way into Texas, Arizona, California, and beyond. American buyers would be dazzled by the surprisingly high levels of quality and the advanced tech. Detroit would be in a panic. But the thing is that still they're going to be used cars. But it'd be interesting because, yeah, that would make it entertaining to go down and buy cars at an auto auction in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
off lease cars, stuff like that. I mean, if you got some of these cars are $20,000 new, then when they're coming off lease, the dealer's probably going to be picking them up for like $7,000, $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, no, I suspect you're going to start seeing some of that, but it's going to be some time. But that would really hurt the resale value of U.S. made cars.
It'd be bad.
Um,
Have you guys talked about the Jim Farley comments from the Aspen Idea Festival? Oh, he just a couple of days ago, he was at the big, Aspen Ideas and speaking, and I think his quote was something like, "It's the most humbled I've ever been," in reference to how China's kicking their butts in EV manufacturing. Is very, I mean, kind of alarmist of like this is like
a real problem.
we have to get this right, otherwise they're going to eat our lunch. And it's just how much they've developed in the past 5 years compared to Ford and some of the other local their domestic manufacturers. It's been pretty. It was interesting. I mean, he's talked about it before. He's been open about what they want to do, but yeah, I holy cow, like you're not pulling any punches of like, yeah, we're getting our butts kicked and we need to do
Well,
better.
he brought that Xiaomi car back to the U.S. with him, and I think Farley might live in Chicago, or I know he brought it to Chicago, so I'm not sure. I would assume he lives in Detroit, but
Detroit, probably, but
yeah, yeah, but who knows? Anyways, all right. Well, folks, I want to thank everybody for watching today. We have some special guests tomorrow from a company called Hop Flight, which they're in the eVTOL. I think they are moving um, larger packages, like heavy
Mhm.
packages, not like your one
Like
pound.
little, yeah, gonna go on my doorstep. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're replacing Chinooks,
Oh
or
wow. Okay,
more,
so big,
we're talking more like heavy duty.
more like they're gonna lift a tank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if they'll lift the tank, but they're certainly, like moving pallets or whatever. Um, they got is what I think, if I've got it right, what they're doing. So apologies if I messed that up, but what it should be an interesting
You're gonna find out
conversation. It's
tomorrow.
a yeah, we got a father son team coming, and Bill loves aviation, so
Yep.
yeah, I think that'll be a good show. Anyways, folks, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Mike and I will be back on Wednesday.